The world slowly got engulfed as the sea level rose. The colossal buildings and statues humans had built collapsed alongside them. In this new world, the sea life flourished as they swam through the ruins of the once lively world filled with people. However, we see that humans still exist, as people in oxygen suits are actively on a quest for something. The man tells his son Boda to be careful of the glass ahead as they arrive at a convenience store. Inside, Boda notices an entire shelf filled with canned food, and they both start filling their cart. Seeing him unable to read the text on the can properly, his father lectures him to study more, but the boy argues that there is no point as he can't even use the knowledge. Despite this, his father wants him to be able to read, as he holds the belief that a time will arrive when his son can make use of this skill. He tells his dad to stop nagging as they get back to savaging. He mentions that they already possess an abundant supply at home, but his father reiterates that they might need it eventually. Done with their underwater shopping, he asks Boda to hold on tight and pull the string. They both start rising to the surface with the inflatable balloons. As they are going up, the boy looks at the ruins, unable to fathom that people used to live in these gloomy buildings. They both return to the boat where they live. The man asks his daughter Lita if she has spotted anything today. She comes down and informs him that there was nothing, but it has been the same for months, and they haven't spotted a single bird. Boda inquires about his father, asking if he really thinks that there are other humans alive besides them. Even Lita is curious about the answer, and she asks if everyone went to heaven just like their mother did. Placing his hand on their shoulder, he reassures them that people still exist in the world, and they haven't met any because of the size of the ocean. In any case, he assures them that he will protect them until they encounter other people, adding that they both also have to help each other. Everyone has their role on the boat. Lita is in charge of laundry and cleaning duties, while Boda is responsible for managing food and water. Their father handles hunting, maintains the boat, and also engages in exploring the ruins. However, since a year ago, Boda has been allowed to go hunting near the surface and was even able to go on the recent ruins exploration with his dad. Among all their activities, what Boda and his sister love doing the most is examining the peculiar tools they retrieve from the sea. This is the lifestyle of Boda and his family. But there is an absolute rule they all must follow. The time of day when their dad is most vigilant is a moment when they must promptly go inside, regardless of the circumstances. It's the time after sunset. We see Lita asking to hug a fish, but she is immediately silenced by her brother and dad. This is because of the sea monsters that only come at night. A loud thud causes the boat to start shaking, frightening Boda. As he trembles with his eyes tightly shut in fear, a hand grabs him. It's his father who reassures him, saying that everything will be fine. He takes both of his kids in his arms as the boat leaks water through the cracks. Both of them fall asleep in the comfort of their father's arms. As he tucks them away, Boda wakes up and inquires if there were monsters in the place where he used to live. With a gentle smile, he answers that as he used to live near the sea, there were a lot of monsters. However, he proudly mentions that they also had harpoonists who were brave warriors that fought against the monsters. He even shows Boda the tattoo of a harpoonist on his arm, as he was one of them. Seeing the mark, Boda curiously asks about the stars as he has never seen them before. His father tells him that stars are like bright jewels that are even visible at night, and people used to gaze at them for guidance when they got lost at sea. His father notices that Boda has already fallen asleep. Sitting alone, he wishes to someday show his kids the beautiful starry sky. In the morning, everyone wakes up to a mess. Even their fishes were eaten. Still, Boda's dad feels fortunate that they are safe. Boda disagrees with his father's belief, especially since a significant portion of their ship has been bitten off. Noticing his father's evident concern about repairing the ship, he offers to go to the ruins in search of supplies. However, his father firmly rejects the idea, warning him that the monsters could still be lurking around the ruins. Boda's constant insistence leaves his father with no other option, and he bans his children from entering the ruins until they are 17. Hearing this, Boda snaps, and he retorts to his father, asserting that he's old enough to make his own decisions. His father explains to him that rules are in place for the safety of the family, and he is willing to take him anywhere except the ruins. But Boda isn't happy with this, as he will be stuck on this small boat regardless of where they go. As they both continue to argue, Lita tells them to stop and points towards the birds. Both of them are shocked to see the seagulls and a building in the middle of the sea. The boy notices some people on the island and starts screaming to get their attention along with Lita. Their father immediately quiets them down, telling them to wait as he goes and checks everything. Before leaving, he instructs them to turn the boat around and leave if anything happens to him. With that, he jumps in the water, leaving Boda and Lita concerned and worried. Arriving at the building, he tries calling out to the people, but upon hearing no response, he decides to go further up. He notices a green door and decides to peek, and only to be left startled by the dead bodies in the room. Meanwhile, back at the ship, Boda and Lita are excitingly waiting for their father to come back with good news. Suddenly, Boda notices a person drowning in the distance. On the other hand, his father finds a box with explosives inside. He wonders where they got them when his attention is diverted by the huge hole in the building. The markings on the building send shivers down his spine, as they are the same as he saw on his boat after the sea monster attack. He suddenly hears Lita calling him and immediately makes his way back to the boat, only to see his son trying to go somewhere. Boda explains that there is someone drowning. Taking a closer look, his father immediately knows that is not a person. The strange figure disappears back into the sea, signaling that something is below them. Sensing the danger, he quickly grabs both of them. After a moment of silence, a huge monster who was waiting under the sea comes out, ripping apart their boat. Everyone is left in shock upon witnessing the sea monster before them. The monster lifts the boat into the air, but miraculously, Boda's father manages to cling to the boat with his children hanging onto him. The sea monster slams the boat down, tearing it into pieces. We see that Boda and his family are still together and unharmed. However, that might change as the monster is about to whip away the boat. As the monster's tentacle strikes, the family of 3 gets flung off, along with the broken parts of the boat. A lot of the stuff gets hurled towards the building as it makes contact with the concrete. Among all this chaos, we see Boda and Lita still in the arms of their father, who didn't let them go despite everything going on. Although Lita fainted due to the shock, both of the kids are uninjured, while their father seems to be hurt. He landed on a metal rod and is bleeding excessively. Regardless, he tells his worried son that he will be fine. He instructs Boda to take his sister and run, promising that he will be right behind them. With his kids running away, he tries to take out the metal rod, piercing his body. However, before he can free himself, the sea monster emerges from the sea, even though it is being scorched by the sunlight. With the creature right in front of him, Boda's father goes for his weapon, but the beast turns its attention to the moving prey. Noticing this, the father screams at his son to run, but it seems to be too late. With the monster chasing right after him, Boda spots an opening. He makes a run for it as the sea monster opens its mouth to swallow him. With a swift jump, he barely escapes the vicious monster, whose teeth are strong enough to even pierce the concrete wall. It attempts to use its tentacle to capture them, but Boda is able to evade it. He tries to stay quiet with Lita in his hands. However, the monster hasn't given up. It transforms its tentacle into a drill-like shape and begins attacking randomly. While trying to dodge, the boy finds himself under a hedge. After waiting there for a bit, the monster retreats. A sudden noise scares the kid, but upon seeing that it's his dad, Boda is overjoyed. However, something is off about him. Suddenly, the figure that had appeared to be his father transforms back into the tentacle. Shocked by this, Boda is unable to move as the tentacle wraps itself around him. Having grabbed him, the monster yanks the boy out of the building. It brings him over to his mouth, ready to eat him, while Boda screams for his dad in fear. Suddenly, his father shows up, cutting the monster's limb and grabbing him. With his son in one arm, he thrusts his sword into the monster as they make their way down its body. After screaming at the ugly beast for touching his son, he tells Boda to hide behind the rocks. Even he hasn't seen a leviathan of this size, as he believes that it might even be bigger than Scutum. Regardless, he can't afford to lose here as he needs to protect his kids. With this determination, he rushes towards the monster, slashing its side using the might of his arms and his trusty weapon. Without taking a break, he dodges the desperate attack of the monster and makes his way towards its head. The beast seems slow due to its size, so Boda's father thrusts his sword into its head and starts slashing it using the downward motion of his body. As he flips away from the leviathan's body, it manages to strike him with its tentacle. The impact sends him hurling towards the building. Boda screams from behind the rocks, seeing his father spitting blood. With the leviathan approaching him, he spots a rope connected to a pulley beside him. With quick thinking, he slices the rope, propelling himself upwards and narrowly escaping being devoured by the monster. As he dangles from a metal pole, the monster still hasn't given up. Noticing this, Boda's father somehow gets it out of the wall and uses it to attack the beast. The pole pierces the leviathan, who had his mouth open. Boda is extremely impressed by his father, watching in awe as he is winning over such a massive monster. Meanwhile, the creature is still alive as it screams in pain. His struggle causes the pole to get stuck between his jaw. This gives Boda's father the perfect opportunity to start cutting it down. However, his luck runs out as the pole snaps, causing the leviathan's teeth to penetrate his body. With his son looking at him, he knows that this might be the end for him. He remembers how he was always worried about losing his kids whenever they did something dangerous or were sleeping soundly. In the back of his mind, he always felt afraid that he wouldn't be able to protect them. Now, with his final moments upon him, all he can do is express his love for his son. With this out of the way, he lets go of his weapon and takes out the explosive he found earlier. He tells Boda to take care of Lita before blowing himself up along with the leviathan. The shockwave from the explosion sends the boy flying. However, he quickly gets up to look at the sea in hopes of his father still being alive. After a while, the realization kicks in that his dad is dead. Overwhelmed by grief, he can only weep and repeatedly call out for his beloved father. In a foggy night, Boda is looking for his sister and father on their ship. He finds Lita sobbing in a corner and asks her why she is crying and where is Dad. She points towards the sea where the half-eaten body of him is floating around. Boda is shocked by this and tries to jump in the water but is stopped by Lita. As he looks at his sister, her face is hollowed out as she begs him to not leave her. This scares the boy, and he wakes up from this nightmare. He is relieved to see Lita right beside him, but is unable to stop the tears rolling down his face remembering his father. He realizes how his father was just trying to protect them and did his best every day. He embraces his sister tightly, even though she is still asleep, conveying to her that their father is gone, and they are now on their own from this point forward. On the following day, Boda locates their belongings, surprisingly still in good shape. He asks Lita to help him gather everything, but she stands there, with a gloomy expression on her face. She asks him about Dad, and Boda hesitates to reply, fearing that his sister might not be ready to hear the painful truth. But before he can utter a word, Lita begins to cry and asks if their father is now with their late mom. All he can do is hug his sister to comfort her. They both have collected everything they needed, when his sister points toward the clock, which is still ticking. But Boda explains to her that they can't rely on such measures anymore. He recounts how the monster attacked them even during daytime. Moving on, he inquires if Lita is hungry, but she responds that she's not, even though her growling stomach betrays her true feelings. She continues to insist that she can manage, but her brother suggests that they attempt to catch something to eat. However, that is easier said than done, as they have lost all their fishing tools. While looking, he stumbles upon the forks he got with his father and remembers his words, which bring tears to his eyes. Quickly wiping them off, Boda gets to work and makes a spear using them. Looking at the sea, he feels a sense of fear that didn't exist before. Even Lita tells him not to go, fearing that the monsters might still be out there. They both notice a crab and decide to eat it for dinner. After preparing the meal, Boda lets his sister have the whole thing, expressing that he isn't hungry, although that is just a lie. The next day, he is able to gather water from the rain, but it isn't enough. He remembers his father teaching him about filtering seawater using a plastic bottle and sunlight. The sunlight evaporates the water placed in the glass, making it drinkable. Using this, their water problem is solved, and they both joyfully laugh together. Having learned a lot from his dad, Boda feels confident about their survival. He decides to memorize the layout of the building as they don't know how long they will be there. Lita also accompanies him as they make their way up the building. They arrive at the same room their dad went through. They both get scared by the rotting dead bodies, but Boda tries to be brave for his sister. After settling their nerves a bit, they start scavenging for useful items. It isn't long before they stumble upon an explosive. Boda's memory is triggered, remembering his father using a similar explosive to bring down the leviathan. He wonders if he can also become like his father and fight the sea monsters. His gaze shifts towards two skeletons laying beside each other. This reminds him of his only family, Lita, and he wonders if he can protect her. Later, they start a fire so they can eat something. While Lita is running after a crab, we see Boda preparing to hunt despite his fear of the sea monster. He picks up the last memento from his father, determined to use it to protect his sister if the sea monster shows up again. While messing around with it, he notices a small button on it. As soon as he presses it, smoke starts coming out of the sword and Boda is propelled forward by it. He hits his face into the pillar and starts bleeding. Observing this, Lita asks him if he's crying, but Boda responds with a no, attempting to maintain a facade of strength in front of her. She leads him to show him something, and they discover a red door covering something on the floor. Upon pushing it aside, a basement is revealed. Boda slowly steps down the stairs, although he feels scared. Unexpectedly, a fish pops up, surprising him. He is amazed to see the basement is filled with fish. Excitedly, he jumps in the water and quickly starts hunting. He is overjoyed that they won't have to worry about food anymore and believes they might just have a chance at survival. As he continues fishing, he suddenly notices something. Boda goes closer to check what he thinks are fish eggs, but to his horror he has stumbled upon an absurd amount of leviathan eggs. His racing heart gets another shock as one of the eggs starts to crack. Witnessing the monsters emerging, Boda swiftly swims towards the surface, but one of the creatures grabs hold of his foot. The monster tries to bite his foot, but he stabs it in the eye. As he gets out of the water, the monster follows him as it's unwilling to let go of its prey. Boda swings his sword around in an attempt to frighten it away, but this has no effect, and the newly born sea monster lunges at him. He narrowly dodges the sea monster's attack and sprints toward the exit. He manages to escape the basement and quickly covers it with the red door, holding it down firmly. However, the baby leviathan's teeth are just as strong as its mother's, effortlessly piercing through the door. But he remains uncertain if it's truly dead, so he seals off the entrance to the basement with a pile of rocks. He feels a bit relieved but suddenly notices that Lita isn't there. Panic surges through him once more as he urgently starts searching for her and eventually finds her standing near the water. Walking towards her, he urgently tells her to step away from the water, but there is no response. She gestures towards the sea, where a human-like figure stands in the distance. Boda is overcome with fear, convinced that the sea monster might still be alive. Having experienced this twice before, he is sure that the sea monster has returned. Nevertheless, Lita starts heading towards the figure using a small boat. She excitedly tells Boda that their dad is back, but he knows better and tries to stop her. All the clocks start chiming, indicating that the sun is about to set. Seeing this, Boda quickly leaps into the water. As he approaches Lita, he notices the sea monsters emerging from their nest. Realizing that it's too late to reach safety, he steers the boat towards a nearby rock. He swiftly gets his sister onto the rock first. However, as he attempts to climb up himself, he senses a sudden change in the water. This unexpected shift aids him in narrowly escaping the grasp of the baby sea monster. Both of them are left stunned as they find themselves surrounded. Stuck on the small rock, Boda knows that they need to get to the island, but despite it being so close, getting there now is impossible. One of the monster hits the rock, cracking it a little. Both of them are struggling to hold on, and Boda realizes that as soon as the rock collapses, they will both be torn apart. Feeling helpless, he's reminded of his father and the promise to protect Lita. Recalling his father's sacrifice, he grabs the sword, determined to defend his sister. The monster leaps out of the sea, but this time Boda is prepared and slashes it right through the middle with his sword. He is surprised by himself, but it's not over yet as two more sea monsters attack them from behind. Noticing this, Boda quickly dashes to strike them down. However, the impact destroys the rock, which causes them both to fall. Refusing to give in, he grabs Lita and jumps, and they both land safely in the boats. Seeing a splash of blood, they both turn around only to witness the monsters eating their bleeding sibling. They are stunned and disgusted by the sight, but they don't waste any time. Seizing the opportunity, they begin rowing towards the island. The sea monsters persist in their pursuit even as they make it to the island. Thinking quickly, Boda decides that they should go up. After assisting Lita in climbing up, he begins to break the stairs to prevent the monsters from following them. However, the stairs prove to be too thick for him to break. With the monsters inside, he swings a few more times but to no avail. With one of them hanging by the stairs, he decides to go up, but the monster is way too close, and he ends up slashing him. However, the damaged stair finally breaks due to the monster's weight, helping both of them escape in the nick of time. Looking below, Boda and Lita both are able to see the disgusting creatures. They attempt to climb the walls, scratching at them, but they are unable to ascend as the siblings watch in fear from above. Boda thanks God, although he is still bleeding from his wound. He assures Lita that he's fine and suggests they stay here for the night. But their nightmare isn't over yet. As soon as he opens the door, one of the sea monsters is standing right in front of them. It's the same one that Boda injured when he first went into the basement. Both of them are unable to move due to the shock. The monster targets the boy, pinning him to the ground. He opens his big mouth, ready to consume him, but before he can do so, Lita strikes him in the eye with a metal rod. Even though she is scared, Lita bravely stands up for her brother. This provokes the monster, and it diverts its attention towards her after knocking Boda aside. Backed against the wall, she has no place to go. However, the monster's vision is severely impaired due to the wounds inflicted on its eyes. Despite the blurred sight, it relies on its acute sense of smell to detect Lita's presence. with its teeth touching her. Tears roll down her cheeks as she desperately hopes her brother can save her. Her silent prayer is answered as Boda starts banging the fuel tank to get it away from her. His distraction works and the monster instantly lunges at him. This time Boda is prepared. He throws the can in its mouth while dodging the attack. With fuel dripping from its mouth, Boda swings his sword against the rocks to create sparks. When these sparks come into contact with the fuel, it catches fire, engulfing the monster in flames. Without a moment's rest, he grabs Lita, and they both make their way to the nearby ladder. On their way up, Boda notices the bomb, which has also caught fire. Seeing this, he urgently instructs Lita to descend quickly, as an explosion could happen at any moment. However, she looks confused, so he has no choice but to grab her and embrace for the impact. The bomb explodes, destroying the building. The huge slabs of rock crumble, falling onto the monsters below. The siblings scream as they fall into the ocean. Miraculously, they manage to avoid being hit by the raining boulders, which completely destroys the leviathan nest below. The ocean begins to fill with blood, prompting Boda to swiftly get Lita out of the water. Both of them cling to the broken down metal, and he once again thanks God. The monster's nest has been destroyed. However, now they have no place to go as the building has collapsed. Suddenly, something seizes hold of the boat, shocking Boda. As he looks behind, he witnesses an entire group of monsters climbing onto the boat. Despite the horrifying situation, he remains determined to protect his sister to the very end. However, it becomes increasingly apparent that they may not survive as he gets overrun by the relentless monsters. With tears and desperation in his eyes, he wants to live. As he struggles, something suddenly strikes one of the monsters from behind. Both of them are shocked as they look towards the ocean. We see a girl standing on top of a surfboard. This is the first time they have encountered another person besides themselves. Despite being surrounded by monsters, both Boda and Lita are unable to take their eyes off the girl on the surfboard. However, these distractions don't affect the monsters, who charge at them indifferently. Seeing this, the girl takes out her weapons and fires arrows at the monsters. Boda quickly gets over Lita, so they don't hit her. Looking carefully, he notices that she is firing a harpoon and begins to wonder who she is. Most of the creatures start going towards her. Meanwhile, one of them remains on the deck and continues to target the siblings. Boda dodges the initial attack while holding Lita. Swiftly, he grabs his sword and strikes at the monster, although the blow lacks sufficient force. His sword is seized, bringing his movement to a halt, and the monster goes in for another strike. However, before it hits the boy, it gets bombarded with harpoons. We see that the mysterious girl has already taken down the rest of them. As she's reloading, Boda shouts to alert her about the monster behind her. His warning allows her to evade the attack, but she accidentally drops one of her weapons into the ocean. Despite her efforts, she wasn't able to completely avoid the attack, and the monster managed to scratch her arm. The girl becomes alert as she senses the sudden change in the waves. With the monsters closing in, she quickly retrieves the two giant swords strapped to her back. Boda and Lita look in amazement while she stomps on the board, propelling it forward. Using this momentum, she charges forward, slicing down the creatures one after the other. She skillfully maneuvers around with her surfboard, ripping apart anything that crosses her path. Boda is amazed to see how easily she is able to take down the sea monsters. The girl continues surfing around and slaughtering them. She cuts the beasts into bite-sized pieces. Their blood splatter around everywhere. The monsters appear somewhat frightened and attempt to evade her, but it's futile as she has no intention of letting even a single one escape. All Boda and Lita can do is look in amazement. Suddenly, a sea monster lunges at them from behind. They scream in fear as they have nothing to protect themselves with. Seeing the defenseless siblings, she rushes towards them at full speed. She jumps off the board and soars above them, captivating their attention. Utilizing the downward momentum, she delivers a powerful blow to the beast, taking it down with a single strike. Once again, Boda and Lita stare in astonishment as blood drips from the girl's body. Having slayed every single one of them, she puts back her swords, finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, Boda clings to his sister as his mind is flooded with questions about this unknown person. Despite being saved by her, he isn't certain whether she is a good person or a bad one. He recalls how close they came to being hit when she fired the harpoons. However, he considers that it could have been an accident, making it difficult for him to determine for certain whether she is a friend or a foe. As he contemplates, the girl expresses that they both got lucky by encountering a harpoonist. This immediately reminds him of his dad's stories about brave warriors who fight against sea monsters. She introduces herself as Kana from the Busan Union. Boda doesn't understand what she means by the Busan Union, and their conversation is interrupted by a rumbling sound in the distance. They all look at it in shock as it comes closer. Gradually, the massive entity becomes visible, revealing itself to be an immense ship. Standing before such a massive boat, the siblings look in astonishment as they have never seen anything like it. It's like an island is moving through the ocean. They suddenly notice unusual bubbles forming in front of them, and to their surprise, a submarine resurfaces, causing them to startle. A guy comes out from the submarine, and Kana complains that he took too long. The man, named Brune, responds by saying that she is too fast for them to keep up with. The siblings had never seen people before, and now suddenly so many of them are appearing in front of them. Boda tells Lita to look at all the people, tears filling his eyes. She looks at her brother and asks if they are saved. He holds her in a reassuringly tight hug. With tears rolling down his face, he lets his father know that they have made it. Meanwhile, the people from the massive boat illuminate the scene with bright lights. Kana instructs them to ensure every monster is exterminated and none are able to escape. She is on the comms with a man named Dr. Foyd, who is conducting an ocean survey alongside a few others. He expresses his disappointment to her, wishing she had left at least one monster alive for him to study. However, even Brune knows that's not possible. If it was another harpoonist, the doctor might have gotten something. Nevertheless, it's a relief that all the eggs have been destroyed. The doctor inquires if she was the one who smashed them, but she responds that it wasn't her. While Brune comments on the ugly appearance of the monsters, one of the scuba divers discovers something and calls Dr. Foyd. It is the remains of the giant leviathan. The doctor and the scuba divers refer to the 50-meter-long beast as a kentereshi. Hearing this, Brune and Kana are shocked. Brune asks if they're talking about one of the 7 sea monsters. The doctor affirms that it's indeed a kentereshi's corpse. He then asks Kana if she slayed it by herself, and she once again answers it wasn't her. Observing the sword lodged in one of the monsters, she casts a suspicious glance at the 2 siblings, suspecting they might be connected to it. Meanwhile, another man is questioning them. After getting their names, he inquires about how long they've been out at sea. Boda responds that it's been about 10 years. The man appears shocked initially, but quickly reveals that he doesn't believe their story. He taps his notepad on Boda's head, imploring him to be honest. Lita gets upset seeing him hit his brother, so she shoves him away and yells that they're telling the truth. The man becomes angry and asks the little girl if she knows who he is. Lita innocently replies that he is a low-level public servant, as that's what he told them earlier. This response only infuriates the man further. Suddenly, Boda reveals that their dad was with them, and tears fill his eyes as he talks about how the sea monster killed him. Finally understanding their situation, Kyo Lee from the refugee camp introduces himself and explains that he will be looking after them from now on. However, Lita makes her feelings clear and openly expresses her dislike for him. Boda quickly grabs her and asks him about the people standing across them. He answers that they're harpoonists, a term Boda knows very well. He finally realizes that his dad was telling the truth about his tattoo, which he now sees on Kana's arm. Kyo informs him that Kana is special because she's a 3-star harpoonist. He explains that the stars on their tattoos represent the number of sea monsters they killed, with each star representing 100 sea monsters. Sadly, he tells them that a lot of harpoonists don't survive long enough to earn even a single star. Hearing this, Boda asks if having 6 stars means that the person has killed 600 sea monsters. Kyo can't help but chuckle at the boy's question, explaining that having 6 stars is impossible, as the highest rank within the Union Busan's harpoonists is 4 stars. He goes on to say that a person with 6 stars would be nothing short of a legend. However, Boda clearly remembers seeing 6 stars on his father's arm. Their conversation ends when Kana informs Kyo that they've been granted permission to board the ship. Before leaving, she takes a closer look at the children. We learn that a ship fell victim to a sea monster named Skotum, and no one could bring it down due to its tough shell. Brune shares with Kana that not even the combined efforts of all the Union Busan's harpoonists could defeat it. However, Kana surprises him by revealing that the sea monster wasn't actually slain by them, leaving Brune thoroughly perplexed. He questions whether she believes in the refugee's fairy tale, to which she responds firmly that it's not a fairy tale. This is because she was there. In a flashback, we witness a woman screaming Kana's name as she gets eaten by the crab monster along with others. She instructs her to hide, but Kana witnesses them all getting crushed inside the monster's mouth, but she is powerless to do anything. Learning that she witnessed the rumored incident, Brune wonders if that is the reason for her immeasurable hate towards the sea monsters. Meanwhile, the entrance to the ship opens up and Kyo tells the siblings that they have arrived at Union's main entrance. Before entering, Boda is handed some of their belongings. Kyo informs them that they will be provided with temporary housing for the time being. However, he emphasizes that this is a trial period, and they must behave as any trouble could result in them being kicked out. Nonetheless, both of them are delighted to have a place to call home. Kyo notices that they aren't wearing any shoes. Although his shift is almost over, he decides to take them to the market. They are both brimming with excitement, although they have no clue what a market is. As they move through the ship, they observe people working around the massive vessel. Lita is astonished by the boat's stability. Meanwhile, huge machines are sorting out metal scraps. Hearing the clanking of the metal and machinery, Boda realizes that people here also use underwater relics, though at a much larger scale. The place resembles a factory, with the scent of metal lingering in the air. Kyo advises them to stay close unless they want to get lost. However, Boda is unable to tear his eyes away from the robot-like machines, as he has never seen anything like them before. Kyo opens the door, telling them that they have arrived. Stepping outside, they witness a place crowded with people. Both of them are extremely excited to see the bustling streets. As they stroll through the market, the children's eyes widen at the sight of numerous new and delicious-looking items. He instructs the children to keep up as they finally arrive at the shoe shop. The salesman is selling a pair for 15 nuts, which is the currency they seem to be using here. Kyo tells the shopkeeper that they are refugees and asks for discount, but the man refuses. He asks if Boda has anything to trade. Looking through his things, he takes out the clock, but the merchant already has an abundance of them. As the boy tries to find something suitable, the salesman sees the whiskey and offers to trade it for the shoes. Boda is happy, but Kyo intervenes, knowing its true value. He yells, making sure everyone in the market is aware that these kids have whiskey. Seeing that it really is whiskey, the adults become excited and engage in a bidding war. Afterward, Boda and Lita are able to get new shoes and various other items. They talk about how nice the people were, as they gave them so much for just a single bottle of alcohol. Lita feels a little disappointed about the ones they emptied out in the ocean. Boda explains to her that they had no other option at that time because they needed rainwater more than alcohol. Listening to their conversation, Kyo explains to them that the value of things can change depending on the circumstances, and in this place, money is the only thing that they can trust. He shows them the place where they will be staying. The siblings gaze in anticipation as the door opens. It's a small, dirty room filled with spiderwebs and dust. Kyo is taken aback by its dirtiness. However, the siblings couldn't be happier. They excitedly jump on the bed, thrilled with their new room. They look out the window towards the sky. Lita glances towards Kyo, calling him a low level, and inquires about the peculiar sparkling objects in the sky. Although annoyed by her name-calling, he responds that those are called stars. The siblings look in amazement as this is the first time that they have seen the night sky. Boda remembers his dad describing how beautiful the sky looks at night. Finally seeing it himself, he sheds tears as he feels that it's just as beautiful as his dad described. Meanwhile, we see something being pulled up onto the ship under Dr. Foyd's direction. As it is pulled up, we see it's the corpse of the leviathan. Everyone is amazed by its size, but Brune can't help but be fixated on it being ugly. The doc, however, understands the value of this sample and informs Brune that it's the apex predator of their generation. Brune contemplates if he could stand a chance against this creature, one of the infamous 7 devils. The doctor criticizes him for being so battle-hungry. He expresses that he needs to conduct research on the creature to uncover the mysteries of sea monsters. However, the doctor is hardly the person to be giving lectures on restraint, as he can barely contain his excitement at the thought of dissecting the beast. Ignoring the doctor's maniac episode, Brune starts to wonder where Kana could be. Meanwhile, we see her walking into a workshop. She asks the man named Sting what he found out. He tells her that it's the real deal, referring to the harpoonist sword she gave him. Ganna ponders on how something so valuable ended up here. She can only draw one conclusion, that this sword must have belonged to the Leviathan Slayer, the legendary 6-star harpoonist Taeun Ma. When questioned about her plans, she responds that the kids can't stay here, especially with an imminent bloodbath on the horizon. This is the first night for the siblings at their new home. Boda is still awake looking at the stars. He feels uneasy, even though people have assured him that harpoonists with stars will protect them and ensure their safety. He isn't the only one having a sleepless night. Kana is still thinking about the Kentrasi who had visible wounds from the fight. She wonders why the owner of the sword fought such a desperate battle. Was Taeun Ma trying to protect the kids who were his family? She turns to look at the globe beside her, as it is something that reminds Kana of her own family. We learn that she and her parents were refugees. They lived their lives at sea, scavenging the seabed for survival. We see Kana when she was just 14 years old. She can't help but feel everything is trash while going through what they found in the sea. Her dad tells her to think of it as a treasure hunt. Cleaning a dirty old ball, he is left surprised. It turns out to be a beautiful globe which he happily gives to her daughter. She is initially delighted to receive it, but her expression suddenly darkens, and she tells him that she doesn't need it. This is so they can sell it at the Busan Union in exchange for money. Although touched by her gesture, her parents insist that they want her to have it as a gift from them. A radiant smile lights up her face as she expresses her hope to one day live in a house as beautiful as the one depicted on the globe. Refugees lived by selling scraps to the Union in exchange for supplies. Kana wished to also live on the huge ship where people could listen to music and live carefree without fearing for their lives. This dream was one shared by many refugees. Their daily life revolved around underwater scavenging, which often bore many risks and monster attacks. Death was an everyday thing for them, but people continued with this lifestyle. Kana's family was also among them. His dad was obsessed with finding treasure, as that was the only way he could get his family's citizenship on the Busan's Union ship. Kana wasn't very hopeful that they would ever find such treasure, especially in this trash-filled ocean. However, the day finally came when his dad and his crew stumbled upon an old relic. At an underwater storage facility of Masuda Heavy Industries, they were able to find machines. Everyone celebrated as they pulled it out of the ocean. Kana wondered if this scrap metal was actually treasure. His dad explains to her that these are deep-sea exploration units that were made by the previous civilization in preparation for the emerging sea levels. Although she doesn't understand much, she is simply happy at the thought that they will be able to live happily in the Busan Union. Everyone was overjoyed that their dreams had come true, blissfully unaware of the nightmare that awaited them. That night, a frightening incident occurred when they were attacked by the giant sea monster named Skotum. The monster crushed her mother as she helplessly trembled in fear, covered by the splattered blood. The refugees tried to fight back, but their weapons were useless against the monster. It killed any human who crossed its path, brutally crushing them with its claws. Blood, screams, and horrified faces were all that could be seen as the massive monster stood atop one of the ships. Among all this, two men fight as one of them tries to aid his friends on the ship, but he is stopped by the other, as there is no saving anyone from the beast. The monster notices the ship and launches arrow-like projectiles from its claws toward them. Amid this distraction, Kana's father seizes the opportunity and takes her with him. They take shelter inside the cabin of the vessel, but the monster is right outside. Kana covers her wounded eye with a cloth while her father contacts the Busan Union for help. However, there is no response from them. In the distance, we see someone fishing. The person is none other than Taeun Ma, Boda's father, and he seems to have noticed something. A small boat is making its way towards him. As it draws near, Taeun notices that the boat is a complete wreck. Upon spotting the lifeless bodies of the two men on board, he instantly realizes that this grim scene is the result of a sea monster's attack, and he suspects that the creature may still be lurking nearby. Meanwhile, Kana's dad persists in his efforts to establish contact with the Union. After some distortion, someone finally responds through on the other side. Noticing this, a frightened man seizes the radio and urgently shouts for help, describing their dire situation as they have come under attack of a sea monster. However, the person on the other end firmly asserts that Union Busan has no responsibility to safeguard the refugees. Shocked by this, Kana's father intervenes and requests that they offer refuge to the child on board. His desperate begging has no effect as it ruthlessly gets denied. Adding to their troubles, he heartlessly wishes them good luck and leaves them to fend for themselves. He attempts to inform them about the relics they have discovered, but it's too late as a claw comes in, shattering the cabin. Kana shouts as the sea monster grabs her father. She tries to go after him, but he firmly stops her, instructing her to stay back before getting crushed right in front of her eyes. His blood splatters over Kana, who has now lost both of her parents. The shock of losing her family leaves her motionless. She stands there wondering how it came to this. The sea monster goes in to finish her, but she is saved by Taeun just in time. He asks her to not give up on life and stay strong. He turns to the frightened man and requests that he take care of the child. Then he introduces himself as Taeyun, a harpoonist from Union Busan. Seeing the sword on his back, the man instantly identifies him, as he is well known, even among the refugees. He is overjoyed that his life will be saved by the Busan Union. However, when he looks outside, there is no one to be seen. Taeyun tells them that the boat will soon sink, and they should use the small raft to escape. Hearing this, the man realizes that the harpoonist came alone, and once again trembles in fear as he believes that they are doomed. Facing the monster, Taeyun has a fierce look in his eyes. As he tightly grips his sword, he ponders whether if he will be able to pierce through the thick shell of the monster. The sea monster doesn't plan on letting him just stand there and attacks him. He dodges and quickly cuts the ropes holding the raft. With that out of the way, he focuses on the fight with the monster. He dashes into the creature with a powerful strike, but is only able to make a small crack. The shell proves to be sturdier than he expected, so he increases the output of his sword by rotating the dial. With steam coming out from his weapon, he prepares to attack once again. However, the monster beats him to it and pounces with his claw. Noticing the incoming strike, he quickly blocks it with his sword. The powerful impact causes the monster's shell to crack, and it quickly retreats. Kana is amazed as she has never seen a monster act like this. Taeyun is determined to end the monster's reign, as witnessing the lifeless bodies of his fellow humans further ignites his anger. He thrusts his sword into full throttle and charges at the beast. Seeing him slicing up the monster, both Kana and the man are astonished. It's nothing short of a miracle to witness a human engaging in battle with a colossal sea monster on equal footing, without any trace of fear in their eyes. Everything has been going smoothly, and Taeyun feels that he can finish it with his next strike. He rushes in to slash the leviathan. As its shell starts cracking, Kana watches in disbelief, finding it hard to fathom that someone can hunt these predators themselves. With his powerful strikes, he has managed to cut through the leviathan's shell. However, the battle is far from finished as he loads his last gas canister into the sword. Skotum suddenly strikes the deck instead of him, shocking Taeyun. As the monster tears out a huge part of the boat, he wonders if it is trying to sink the ship. The monster tosses the metal chunk towards the cabin where Kana and the man were hiding. Seeing the cabin destroyed, Taeyun becomes infuriated and charges to kill the sea monster. Meanwhile, we see that they both are still alive, but Kana is stuck under some rubble and asks for help, but the man is paralyzed by fear. In his terror, he abandons Kana, leaving her behind. Taeyun is still fighting the beast, slicing it repeatedly, sensing that something is off. The leviathan is wounded all over, but is surprisingly not fighting back. As Taeyun is contemplating about this, we see the frightened man running out of the cabin, repeatedly screaming how he doesn't want to die. The monster starts rumbling, as it had been waiting for this moment. Taeyun tells the man to get down, but it seems to be too late. The sea monster launches a barrage of arrows, which he attempts to block with his sword, but it proves insufficient. He finds himself pinned to the wall while the unfortunate man gets pierced by several arrows. Due to his mistake, Taeyun is in a tough spot. He quickly frees his leg, and as he attempts to remove the arrow from his arm, the sea monster moves in to grab him. He instantly pulls his body, avoiding the claw, and uses the arrow he just pulled out to strike its claw. This causes it to retreat, pulling Taeyun's body along. The force causes him to wince as the arrow passes through his hand. Having freed his arm, he uses the motion from their encounter to spin like a whirlwind. Concentrating all this force into his sword, he executes a devastating strike from above, piercing into its body. Using all his strength, he pulls out the sword, but we see that the monster is still alive, as it hits him from behind using his tail. The impact sends him flying across the ship as he spits out blood. He finds it hard to even stand up, and is even out of gas canisters. But despite all this, he refuses to give up. Hearing a thud, he looks at the monster, who is foaming from the mouth. Covered in scars from the harpoonist, the leviathan is also severely injured. As they both stand face to face, the sun starts rising, causing the monster's skin to burn. It suddenly starts moving, startling Taeyun, but it isn't going in for an attack, but instead jumps into the water. Taeyun checks to make sure that the monster is gone. Once he confirms this, he immediately drops to his knees, letting out a sigh of relief. He is happy, knowing that even the larger monsters are deterred by the sun. Remembering about the girl, he goes to check the cabin. Seeing her stuck under the rubble, he immediately starts working to free her. She inquires whether he managed to kill the monster. Taeyun explains that the monster fled due to the sunlight. She further asks if that thing will come back. He tells her that he doesn't know, expressing that they should be glad they will see another day. However, Kana doesn't share his sentiments, as she feels infuriated by the creature that devoured her parents. He understands her pain, but all he can do is pat her head, trying to comfort her. With the sun up, the harpoonist along with Union ships show up. They didn't come to save anyone, but they just came to get their dirty hands on the relics that the refugees have found. They present Kana with citizenship and treatment in exchange for the relic. As a young child, she had no choice but to accept the contract. Her lifelong dream comes true, but at what cost? Getting congratulated by the man, Kana feels a sense of guilt and sadness. Meanwhile, the citizens of Busan Union celebrated and revered the harpoonists for defeating Skotum. They didn't feel a shred of remorse towards all the refugees that died. Kana listens in on officers talking about how refugees provide free labor by finding relics for them. One of them continues, mentioning that he received a distress signal yesterday but deliberately refused the refugees' assistance, resulting in them acquiring a free relic from Masuda Industries as a consequence. Kana is shocked as she can't believe what she's hearing. She steps out with a broken glass bottle and confronts the officer, asking if they were waiting for the refugees to die. Ignoring her question, he mocks her, asking how she feels having become a citizen by sacrificing her parents. This infuriates her, and in a fit of rage, she attacks him with the bottle. However, he effortlessly dodges her assault and responds by smacking her. He doesn't let it go at that and grabs the little girl by the throat, expressing that all refugees are savages, just as he expected. He handcuffs her, saying that attacking an officer is a felony, and he can even execute her right here if he wanted. He proudly proclaims that harpoonists represent justice, a statement that seems nothing short of a joke to her. She laughs, telling him that they are nothing but cowards who turn their backs when their help is needed. The bitter truth doesn't sit well with a coward, and he kicks Kana, dropping her onto the floor. The three men start beating her to take out their anger. As they kick and punch her, suddenly, someone grabs one of the officer's hands, and to their surprise it's Taeyun, who looks visibly upset. He launches a spin attack, sending the guards flying away from Kana. With a fierce look in his eyes, he confronts them, questioning their actions and how they could threaten a young girl. One of the officers responds that he shouldn't interfere with the duties of a fellow harpoonist. Hearing the ridiculous claim, he questions whether assaulting young girls is a part of their duty. The man shamelessly responds with a yes and charges at Taeyun. However, we see that this has greatly infuriated Taeyun, who breaks his crutches as he prepares to teach them a lesson. Seeing him like this, they immediately wuss out and decide to leave. However, as they depart, one of the men warns him not to become too arrogant just because he's strong, reminding him that even the strongest can end up as fish food. He doesn't pay much attention to this and asks Kana if she is all right. While they converse, he points out to her that place is no different from her refugee ship because the rule of the strong devouring the weak remains the same even here. He emphasizes that what's different here is that she now has to deal with people instead of sea monsters. Regardless, the fact that she needs to become stronger remains the same. Hearing this, she asks him about how she can become a harpoonist, surprising him. Taeyun isn't sure that this is something for her, as most applicants end up failing. Kana tells him that she will become one no matter what, and as she talks about killing the sea monsters, even Taeyun is able to sense the overwhelming hate emanating from her. Just like that, Kana became a harpoonist following in the footsteps of the person who saved her. In the present, she still remembers the debt she owed to Taeyun Ma and wonders if he sent his kids here for some specific reason. The next morning, we can hear the announcement about the monsters having been defeated and that peace has returned to the Union Busan. The announcement also emphasizes that people are the chosen ones and must work for the prosperity of the ship. Meanwhile, at the scrap metal yard, we see Boda trying to say something to a worker. Amidst all the noise, he has to shout to make himself heard as he informs the man that he is here for a job. Observing Boda as just a little kid, the man expresses concern that the job might be too difficult for him, noting that even adults struggle with the work here. With another rejection, he goes to look someplace else where physical strength is not required, but he only ends up getting rejected by people who don't hire refugees or just don't have a job for a kid. As he stands there feeling disappointed, he notices an old lady begging for money as she hasn't eaten anything for the day. Feeling bad for her, Boda checks his pockets and finds 2 nuts. He gives the money to her, expressing that this is all he has for now, but when he gets a job he will give her lots more. The old lady brightly smiles at the kind young boy. As a token of gratitude, she offers him a handful of seeds, explaining that they symbolize hope and might be more fitting for someone like him. Boda thanks the lady and takes the seeds, feeling much better than earlier. Back at home, the siblings lay out all their money on the bed. They have used up half of it in a week, so Boda feels that he needs to urgently find a job, especially since Kyo told them that they would be kicked out if they can't pay their taxes like everyone else. Regardless, there is nothing he can do until someone is willing to hire him. So for the time being, he tells Lita that they will need to cut down to 1 roasted sardine a day. After pointing out that he wasted their money on some seeds, she goes into panic mode, not wanting to lose her sardines, and suggests that they ask Mr. Public Servant for help. Coincidentally, Kyo shows up asking if Boda was able to procure a job. After hearing everything, he decides to use his connection to get him a job, but warns Boda that it's a little dangerous. With him having no issue, they make their way to the lowest floor's plumbing area. There we see an old man who isn't happy seeing the scrawny kid, as he wanted someone strong. As he complains, Kyo signals Boda to flex a bit more, but there is barely anything to flex on his body. The old man gets fed up seeing their circus act and decides to give Boda a chance. With him finally getting a job, Kyo asks Boda if he remembers what is the most important thing on the ship. Boda answers money, recalling what Kyo told him. Satisfied with his response, he leaves, adding that Busan Union may protect them from monsters but won't protect them from disease and poverty. It appears that Boda wants to say something to Kito, but the old man interrupts him, reminding him that they have work to do, so he joins the other plumbers in their work. But unfortunately, he ends up getting drenched by sewer water as soon as he begins. This happened because there was a mistake with the blueprint which don't match with the actual pipes, so one of the other plumber lets their boss know about it. The old man informs him that they just need to do what they can, as the ship is 100 years old, making it difficult to even find the parts for it. Boda is shocked to learn this. He asks the old man about the person made this huge ship, as he has been working on it for 40 years. He replies the humans did, when there was still land to stand on. He adds that people in that era had much more advanced technologies and could build even larger structure. However, everything changed when a huge comet collided with the moon. The fragments from the impact caused changes in Earth's atmosphere, which caused it to constantly rain for 70 years. As sea levels continued to rise, people took to merging ships together to create a habitable space, which eventually evolved into what we currently recognize as Union Busan. It received its name with the aspiration that one day it might revert to becoming the real city of Busan once again. One of the other plumber lets the boy know that the ship is older than even their boss Harong, so it needs constant maintenance to stay floating. Understanding how important the job and the people working here are, Boda also becomes determined to do the best he can to contribute. With that motivation in mind, he dedicates himself to maintaining the ship, driven by the desire for his sister and himself to live on it forever. As he diligently works, he notices water touching his feet, and suddenly, something behind him breaks. The other plumber shouts that its backflow as water floods the place. He lets their boss know that the pipe 3 has become clogged. Frustrated, he angrily instructs the man to repair it, but he explains that pipe 3 is located too deep, and fixing it would require dismantling a few other pipes to access it. Ha-Rung gets more infuriated, asking who set it up, but it seems that he was the one who ordered it. Regardless of whose mistake it was, they all are doomed if they don't do something about the escalating problem. The water levels rise even further as one of the pipes bursts. Meanwhile, Lita is at home watering the plants and cleaning up their home. Suddenly, there is a knock at the door, so she goes to open, thinking it's Boda. However, we see it's the 3 corrupt officers who bullied Kana when she was young. Their leader pats Lita on her head, expressing that she takes a lot after her mother. She becomes excited upon learning that the man knew her mother, and he shares that he is an old friend of her father. Back to the lowest floor, the situation has gotten worse, and the water level keeps rising. Ha-Rung realizes that if this continues, the water will eventually reach the engine room, putting the ship at risk of sinking. So taking matters into his own hands, he decides to go inside pipe 3 himself, but one of the other workers points out that it's impossible for him to fit due to his bulky body. Seeing all this, Boda grabs the wrench from his hand, announcing that he will go instead. Though initially taken aback, Ha-Rung sternly instructs the boy to stop talking nonsense, emphasizing that this is not a task suitable for a child like him and that it could even be life-threatening. Ignoring his warning, Boda heads towards pipe 3, expressing that he is the only one who can fit. Without wasting time, he dives into the water, leaving his coworkers startled and worried for him. He follows a path into the sewage system in the hope of locating the clogged pipe. However, when he reaches the edge, he is shocked to see numerous pathways. Boda quickly looks around for pipe number 3. Upon finding it, he notices that the pipe isn't even connected to anything, leaving him confused. Meanwhile, the boss is still worried for Boda as he can die if he gets lost in there. He suddenly grabs a wrench and tells everyone to come with him. While this is happening, Boda wonders if he should go back unsure of what to do. Suddenly, he notices one of the pipes vibrating. It becomes evident that Ha-Rong and the others are guiding him by banging on one of the pipes. Realizing their intention, he enters the pipe. After a short while, he spots an air pocket and pauses to catch his breath and eventually locates the clogged area. He gets to work carefully poking around until he successfully dislodges the trash, which is swiftly carried away by the rushing water. Outside, Ha-Rong observes the water swirling, and his face lights up with joy as a sign that Boda has successfully unclogged the pipe. The entire team is overjoyed and praises Boda. However, their joy quickly dissipates as Ha-Rong asks one of them about the time. One of them has a watch, and he informs everyone that it's already been 8 minutes. This is worrying the old man, as the boy should have been out by now. At the 12-minute mark, we see he's still underwater, struggling to get out. Unable to breathe, Boda finally passes out. As his body lifelessly floats, we see that Ha-Rong desperately keeps hitting the pipes, trying to guide him. However, 18 minutes have passed, and gradually, a sense of hopelessness descends upon everyone. They tell their boss to stop as it's already been over 24 minutes. The old man continues his desperate effort for a few more minutes, but with so much time having passed, he starts feeling hopeless and blames himself. Suddenly, bubbles start to surface, and to everyone's amazement, Boda emerges. His face is completely pale, and his eyes are bloodshot, a testament to the 30 minutes he spent in the water-filled pipes. The old man hugs him as he can't believe that Boda is still alive. The old man inquires if he discovered an air pocket, and the boy confirms with a nod, stating that he wouldn't have survived otherwise. Everyone is happy that he is back, especially the old man Ha-Rong, who asks him to join their team. With this, Boda is finally able to secure a job for himself. One of the workers spoils the mood by saying that they were in need of someone ever since Mickey died, after others teach him a lesson for being tactless. They all raise a toast in celebration on Boda joining their team. He feels thankful and blessed that he was able to arrive at Busan Union. He grabs some roasted sardines for Lita and then heads home. He excitedly opened the door to his home. However, as he enters, he is perplexed to find Lita sitting on a chair and wonders if she has been injured. Suddenly, she shouts at him to run, confusing him even more. But it's too late as a hand grabs him. We observe that the officer from earlier had been waiting for Boda, and he addresses the boy by his full name, Boda Ma. We learn that upon seeing Boda's name in a report, he instantly recognized him as Taeyoon Ma's child. Filled with anger and disappointment, he kicks Boda and then grabs him by the hair. He expresses his frustration that Taeyoon met his end at the hands of a monster because he wanted to exact his revenge personally. The boy is shocked by the unfolding situation as the man continues, accusing his father of being a traitor to Union Busan. Seeing the shocking look on his brother's face, Lita quickly rushes to his side. The officer welcomes them both back to their home, but his tone is filled with disdain as he refers to them as traitorous brats. The man once again kicks the boy. As he stomps on the boy's head, he calls them shameless for coming back on their own accord. Lita tries to help her brother, but she is being held by the other corrupt officers. Boda pushes away the man's feet, expressing that his father was not a criminal but a hero. The man laughs upon hearing this and states that his father would have probably told them that he was a 6-star harpoonist and made himself to be a hero, but that's not true. The man starts gaslighting Boda by saying that they didn't meet anyone at sea for 10 years because their father was running from them. Hearing this, Boda is in disbelief. In an attempt to deceive the child, he reveals his prosthetic arm to the boy, falsely claiming that his father was responsible for causing this injury. He further adds that their father was a murderer who went around killing his fellow harpoonist from the Union Busan. Boda is completely shaken up as he wonders if his father was truly a murderer. During all this, one of the other officers grabs him as their leader decides to enact his revenge. He tells the boy that he should blame his dad because someone has to pay for his crimes. The evil man proceeds to use his robotic arm to grab Boda's face. As he starts slicing the kid's face with the sharp fingertips, Lita screams telling him to stop. The man momentarily stops, but it isn't because of Lita, but instead cause of the announcement for harpoonists to gather as there is a sea monster attack. Looking outside, we see people are running everywhere in a panic. This gets the corrupt officers to stop for now. Meanwhile, a few ships are heading to Union Busan, but their path is blocked by monsters who begin to attack their ships. The men on board try to defend themselves as the monsters attack their ship. One of the sea monster gobbles up a human, and despite their efforts, the others are powerless to save him, as their weapons prove to be ineffective. Even their most advanced weapons fail to take them down. These monsters are able to easily tear apart the metal of the control room and eat the humans inside. In a different part of the ship, we see a group of people. The sudden thud above them sends shivers down their spines. It's like they are living their worst nightmare as monsters begin to enter, tearing a hole right above them. With the monsters out for blood, one of the ships sinks. Meanwhile, the people on the other boats witness this horrifying incident unfolding right before their eyes. They immediately accelerate, powering toward Union Busan at full throttle, desperate to reach safety. Back at the Union, the siblings are temporarily saved from Major Doho as he needs to go. However, he doesn't plan on letting them off and promises to make their life a living hell. Both Boda and Lita are terrified as he leaves, locking them in the house. Boda tries to comfort his sister in his arms while thinking about escaping this place as he believes the man named Doho is too dangerous. Kana receives a report that their exploration unit is under attack. She lets the others know to prepare and they all head out. On their way to the location, Kana tells Bruin to cover the deck while she and the others attack the flank. Everyone responds in unison and they head into battle. We see they are just in time as the eel monster was about to catch up to the other ships. Bruin put his hands into the water by equipping himself with metal arms. He jumps over the ship straight towards the sea monster with a punch. As soon as he makes contact with the monster, the force of the impact squashes its face, and then Bruin tears right through it. He lands on the ship as blood and flesh sets the stage for their fight. With more monster incoming, he gets to work using the gauntlets and starts tearing them apart one by one. After defeating 5 of them, the gauntlets run out of steam and their gas cartridges have to be changed. The people on the ship rush to Bruin, praising him even though the danger hasn't fully passed. It becomes evident that Bruin's gauntlets are coated in a strange green mucus, which has also spread to a small area on the deck. He is taken aback as he realizes that this mucus is coming from the monster. Meanwhile, Kana and the rest of the crew are firing harpoons at the monsters, but they are also facing the same issue. The mucus is preventing the arrows from piercing the monsters. However, this is the least of their worries as the monster tries to flip over the boats. Bruin tells the other people on the boat to escape, but it is too late as the monster attacks a man that they have trapped in their mucus. Just as he is about to get eaten, Kana shows up slicing the eels right through the middle. She asks Bruin to help everyone escape while she lures the monsters away from the ship. In order to do this, she takes out bottles filled with pheromones that she got from Dr. Foyd. As soon as she breaks one, the monsters divert their attention towards the smell and start chasing after Kana.